Yeah, first of all, we've had this conversation in the past. I mean, being a police officer is not what every child grows up to want to be. I remember playing cops and robbers, and we've had a lot of negative press about police in general. We've had a lot of unfavorable news stories, which unfortunately pick out a few bad apples, and certainly not with the profession as a whole. How's that impacting your recruiting? And then how does technology? How can you apply technology in these circumstances?
It's difficult. When you have, look in Kentucky.
Right.
It's on the news. I don't know of a time since I learned of it yesterday I've turned the news on and it's not talked about.
Right.
Whether it's local news, whether it's national news, it's there. And when you see, I don't know all the details behind, I don't know what happened before those officers approached that man, but it is horrific what you're seeing.
Absolutely.
How these officers are, I ain't gonna say attacking, but hitting this man, striking him in the head,
repeatedly,
kicking him in the side, the back, things that look very excessive.
Right.
That hurts law enforcement in general, even though this may be happening there.
Right.
But we feel the effects in our profession all across the country.
Right.
And it's not just this one, it's the one before that, the one before that, the one before that, and we can just go back in time. And each time you see these horrific acts by these very few who do not represent the whole profession, it affects us when it comes to recruitment.
Right.
It also affects us when it comes to retention.
So how do we combat that? Part of that is the general public, right, in conversation, discourse. And I try to make a point to tell each one of our police officers I see them, I really appreciate what they're doing. I appreciate the job they're doing. I appreciate the position they're taking because they represent the protection of each one of our citizens here in Rocky Mount. They really do. And they're the ones enforcing the law. And I really appreciate the risk that looks like. So how are you best recruiting officers? How can the public help you toward that goal?
Our recruiters still go out. They go to career fairs. They're going to our schools. They're going to our community colleges and our basic law enforcement academies, speaking with cadets who have not already committed to an agency. We're going out in our community, speaking with young men and women who have shown an interest in law enforcement, and we're showing them the process in which they have to go through and how they can actually get into the profession. We're doing radio advertisements. We're really blasting that on all our social media platforms. We've even put a newspaper ad in before. We're doing everything we can to spread the word, but the most important thing is getting out and interacting with the public. In positive ways. So that's why our community engagement position is vital, because every time our community engagement coordinator sets up a program or activity or an event with the young children or young adults or even some of our older adults, those are positive interactions. And hopefully one of them may say, I can see myself being like Officer X or Officer Y, and decide that they want to explore a career in law enforcement. You said something, and to that point, Mayor, what can the community do? You said it best. We get a lot of thank yous. We know what we see across the country is not Rocky Mount. That is not what we expect of our officers. That is not what we are getting. That is not how we treat our citizens in our city. And we get those thank yous, and it means a lot. It goes a long way. It don't have to be monetary awards or gifts. It don't have to be the baked goods, which we do love. Don't stop. But a simple thank you goes a long way. It really makes the officers feel appreciated, and it helps each and every time a citizen does that.
And so on that same note, the city manager also, I think, granted your policy or request for a policy to be able for officers, uniformed officers, to be able to take their cars home.
Yes, sir.
So let's talk about that. That was something when I was running in my campaign, I had a number of people tell me that, but Ricky Parks is a dear friend of mine. We went to high school together. He said, man, that would really be impactful. And I'd love to take credit for this policy, but I have nothing to do with it. But I'm glad to see it happen. So talk a little bit about that.
Me too. I was so thankful for our city manager and the council supporting that new program. As I said earlier, we encourage officers to live in the city. I think it's important that the neighborhoods in which our officers live in, the community see them.
Right.
And I think that police car in the neighborhood make them more visible. I think it will also hopefully help the citizens and neighbors in that neighborhood feel safer, and it'll be a deterrent.
Right.
If you drive down a block and you see a police car, then you know, hey, there's a watchful eye in that neighborhood.
Right.
But it's also a great morale builder.
Right.
It's also a great retention tool.
Sure.
We are one of the few departments that was not having a take-home car program. So to implement that now, something we haven't had in the past, I think was very great to help recruit, but also retain some of our experienced, long-serving officers within the Rocky Mount Police Department.
Well, I'm excited to see it for all the reasons you mentioned. And I got to tell you the truth, and I don't own much real estate anymore, but I would love to have a police officer living in my house, driving up in a car. I'd even probably discount that just so that I could have that level of presence around, because it's a good thing.
Yes, sir, it is. And we have some apartment complexes, property owners who have courtesy officers who live in their apartment complexes.
There you go.
So, of course, that car is a nice thing to see when you're driving home and you drive into the parking lot and you see that officer's car there.
That's right.
It's definitely something the neighbors love to see. And I know my officers are very thankful that they have this opportunity and they get a take-home car.
And I'm excited for it. So, look, I came here with some crime numbers. I'd love to talk about that a little bit.
Yes, sir.
And then let's talk about some of the technologies that you're beginning to employ and really sort of the battle against crime. And, look, we all know that crime cannot be out-arrested. We know that there's a direct connection to poverty. We know that there are all these other things. So it's not just an absolute policing problem that we're dealing with. It's a community challenge that we all need to be working toward with different facets of it.
Yes, sir.
But if you don't mind, let's go over the numbers a little bit.
Yes, sir. And you can follow along with me if you like.
Yes, sir. I'd love to.
What I had my crime analyst unit, just for information for all the viewers. We have a crime analyst team made up of two very talented, very skilled young women.
Right.
Who that is their primary job, to analyze the numbers, to help identify if there's crime spikes or there's trends, there are commonalities in different cases for the department, for the detectives, the police officers on the street, the whole department.
Right.
And so they ran our first quarter, second quarter numbers. I report this every month to City Council at the committee of the whole.
You do?
But I did pull the first two quarter numbers, and for the first 6 months from January 1st to July 30th, our violent crime numbers are showing about a 3% decrease from last year this same time.
Right.
Now, property crime is a little different. It is about 8% higher than last year.
Right.
Overall, 5% higher with all of the incidents and crimes that we track.
Right.
So, but even with that 3% lower violent crime, still we're going to remain vigilant
right.
in our efforts. We realize that 3% is small.
Right.
And it can change at any moment.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're still targeting three major areas: guns, drugs, and gangs.
Right.
We're going to continue our efforts working with our federal partners to deal with those three primary issues in our city. We still meet with our federal partners. We still meet with our state and our local partners to make sure that we're doing everything, bringing all our resources that we have at our disposal to deal with those three major drivers, I feel, of our violent crime in our city.
Sure. And we all know that crime goes up typically in the summer when the hours are a little bit longer. But tell us a little bit about the initiatives that you had. I mean, look, you were very successful and are very successful in the reduction of violent crime since our May meeting, I think it was, where we issued sort of a proclamation saying, look, state of emergency based on just the impact of shooting after shooting after shooting. But you've been working with state partners, you've been working with federal partners. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, it's one thing, I know what you're talking about, but I think we ought to really break that down for folks because it's a big deal.
Yes, sir. We're still strategically looking at all of our crime data. That is what helped us hold these numbers, to hold the spike from continuing to rise.
Right.
I think we would have seen much higher numbers if we hadn't acted quickly. The Rocky Mount Police Department, working with all of our partners in this, we could have seen much higher numbers. So strategically identifying the areas in our city that we're seeing spikes in crime or crime still continuing,
right,
and focusing all of our efforts and resources in those identified areas. We also have relooked at our gun screening process. Every gun case that comes through one of my detectives' desk is reviewed with our district attorney's office, with our ATF staff and personnel at the federal level to identify those individuals who meet the criteria.
Okay.
And if they meet the criteria to go federally, we're going to ensure that we're going to take them federally. Come with more jail time, and it's going to be quicker in the process. And if we identify individuals who are partaking in these violent crimes in our city and they meet that criteria, we're going to do everything in our power to ensure that they're prosecuted accordingly and get the time that they deserve and get them off the streets of our city.
And that's the impact of meeting with federal feds versus state versus local officials, and it's being able to do that assessment and being able to get them in the right track. It's a huge component of that. Wow, I mean, I really appreciate what you're doing. You know, the other thing I think we need to point out is that crime nationally is on the rise, not just in cities, but in rural areas. I was reading an article, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal maybe a month or two ago, and it was talking about rise in crime in rural areas was up as much as 30-40%. Now, I don't have that article here, but the point is it's increasing everywhere. So why do you think that is? I mean, I know at some point we got an inflationary cycle here. Everybody's being penalized. My dollar's not what it was worth even 2 years ago. My gas is going up. Well, it's actually coming down a little bit now, but my milk and my beef and my hot dogs, I mean, I don't care what it is going up. And that pinches people. You know, so obviously there's some temptation for property crime, but that can't be the whole story.
Well, you know, Mayor, I think there's multiple factors that go into, I think, rise in crimes in different cities across our country. You know, I think, you know, economics, you know, financial income coming in the home can drive some.
Sure.
You know, I think education, you know, I would love to see more individuals get held in school, get the proper education so they're better prepared when they get out of high school to transition over into trade or to secondary education. I think, you know, it's family. You know, I think we have seen over the years a breakdown in family.
Right.
I remember growing up, and every Sunday, my great-granny took me to church. And I think that helped mold the person you see before you. The values, the family togetherness, I think, has changed some in our community.
Well, the accountability the family provides.
It has. Over my 27 years in the profession, I have seen more, it seems like, from just a few.
Right.
A lot of negativity, a lot of individuals have gone astray, which is why, you know, it was important for the Rocky Mount Police Department to work with many community vendors or community resources to have the event that we had at the event center just a couple of months ago, where we brought the community and those community resources together. We had a very motivated speaker who spoke with everyone, about 80 or so individuals that came to help make sure that these individuals in our community who may need a resource, whether it's mental health, whether it's anger management, whether it's educational opportunities, go back to school, get their high school equivalency or their GED, substance abuse, making sure that they know that we care for them and these resources are there for them. All they have to do is ask.
Right. Well, you've done that. I think even as recently as yesterday, you had a downtown meeting with folks. I wasn't able to get down there for, but tell us a little bit about that. I understand you had at least a couple dozen folks there in the audience and a lot of engagement. It was
more than a couple dozen. I think it was closer to 3 dozen.
I like that. That's awesome.
I loved it. I wanted to make sure we worked with our downtown manager and worked with the Chamber of Commerce. So Mr. Harris is our downtown manager, and also Mr. Ferris, our president of the Chamber of Commerce, to really want to have kind of a town hall forum to speak with those business owners and managers in the downtown district of our city, just to talk about any concerns they may have. How can we continue to make downtown Rocky Mount vibrant in our city? And, you know, police, we have a role in that.
Right.
Making sure that we understand what the challenges are that our businesses may face, especially in the area of public safety, and to make sure we come up with solutions to that. So what
were the complaints you heard?
Well, you know,
I mean, I can probably guess them, but I
well, yes, sir. Visibility.
Yeah.
They wanted to make sure that in certain times of day or in the evening, the visibility of the officers in downtown, which I committed officers to be dedicated there, especially over the weekends when we have more individuals downtown. Entertaining themselves and family and friends. So more visibility of our officers, which I have committed to do that. More follow-up. More follow-up meetings to make sure that we are doing what we say we're going to do.
Right.
So it's one thing for the chief to say, well, I'm going to give extra patrols, dedicated staff to be downtown on foot.
Well, you can say it, but it may mean something to me differently. I may hear something different than what you've committed to. So that there's an understanding component to that, right?
It is. It is. But, so hopefully the follow-up meetings on the public safety side, they can say, well, Chief, we've seen a visible difference in the officer being present downtown. There was a few concerns and things shared with us that we're passing on to the right departments, some doing a lighting review to make sure that all of the lights downtown are working like they should, because we know that if there's dark spots, that could be a location where a crime could occur. Someone can be lurking in the dark.
Right.
So we're going to make sure that we pass it on to the right department to ensure we look at our lights downtown, make sure they are working properly. But I also ask the businesses to help us, that if you see lights out, if you see problems and issues, please report it to us. I know for public safety, I wish I had some crystal ball and I can see everything everywhere, but I don't. So if you have concerns, people loitering, if you have littering concerns, if you have suspicious activity going on anywhere, whether it's downtown or in our city, please let us know so we can address that. Sometimes I get citizens say, well, Chief, I understand you're focusing on the guns, the drugs, the violent crime. But every crime, no matter how big or small, it's a concern of ours.
Sure.
Even down to littering is a concern.
Well, it's an indication of attitude.
You're exactly right.
First of all, I want to say I'm excited that you're having that conversation for several reasons. Not so long ago, downtown was a ghost town. I saw some tumbleweeds blowing through. So the fact that we have people down here opening up businesses, kind of bringing a new lifeblood, a new perspective to downtown Rocky Mount with events going on in the weekends is a beautiful thing.
Yes, sir.
It's a beautiful thing. I had a lot of people had given up on downtown, but you see it kind of resurging, and it seems to be climbing. And I appreciate your commitment to helping everybody down there. So, talk about technology and technologies. I mean, everybody is down FTEs in policing. It is. We've talked about hard recruit, but you're starting to look at various technologies that have helped solve a number of crimes.
Yes, sir.
A number of things that have given you kind of a heads up. Maybe it's not a crystal ball, but it's at least telling you something more close to real time so that you can respond to it. And I'm excited about a lot of those projects. And I know we're a long way away from being absolutely where we need to be, but it's pretty daggone cool. So Fusus, I think, is one of them. And
yes, sir. Fusus is one of our premier top technology pieces that we've implemented several months ago. And it's continuously given us the leads we need to identify vehicles and individuals partaking in crime in our city. We've taken, I want to say my last report, over a dozen, like 16 or so guns off the streets.
Oh, great.
We've recovered property, stolen vehicles from the system. And that is all because we have businesses. And, of course, the city installed cameras in multiple locations. But I want to highlight our businesses who have partnered with the Rocky Mount Police Department in connecting their cameras to the Fusus system. It has been instrumental in helping us get a view of a crime when it's actually happening at that moment, and also have been instrumental in having us the ability to look back at video feeds to identify these individuals that are partaking in these many times violent crimes or robbery or car theft. It has been very helpful for our investigators and our patrol officers. And I will just say thank you to the businesses who have signed up with us, and encourage any business owner or manager of a business who have a camera system that has internet access to please contact the Rocky Mount Police Department so we can get them in contact with our IT individuals in the department to connect them on. It is free of charge.
Right.
It's a very simple process, and we will assist them in installing the actual Fusus core to their system to get them connected.
So anywhere in particular in the city you're looking for cameras at the moment, or, I mean, clearly all over, but is there a particular area right now that you want to emphasize that you're looking for businesses to come forward?
Not a particular business, but main corridors, Sunset, Wesleyan,
Grace, Raleigh
Church, Franklin, Raleigh, Falls, Bellevue, all of our major roadways. But any business is always welcome to connect to our system, because you just never know what may occur in a particular area of our city. So we're not excluding any business to connect and partner with us. So if they're interested, please reach out to the department, and we can definitely get them connected to the right individual, because that assistance, that partnership goes a long way.
Sure it does.
In helping to make our city safer.
Sure it does. So look, we have scored in surveys over and over and over very high public opinion, saying they feel like crime and violent crime is the #1 issue in Rocky Mount, and we're working hard. I said we, Royal, you and your team are working very hard to eliminate crime. Not that it ever gets eliminated, and I believe we're doing a great job. So where do we change the mindset of folks in terms of this feeling, because that's a really large part what it is. It's a feeling. When you look at the numbers, we're making the arrest, you're making the arrest. Unfortunately, a lot of them get turned back out on the street pretty quickly, but that's a magistrate judge thing. That's not a PD thing. So how do you think we get to that place? Is it conversation? Is it what's your thoughts on that?
You hit the nail on the head. More conversation, making sure that our community is aware of what's going on and getting all of the facts of situations that occur in our city. I know many of us are on social media. It's a great platform. I'm not knocking social media. I don't know very many citizens who are not on social media. But social media is what it is. It's information that comes from sometimes unvalidated, unfact-checked sources. But there's a lot of value there as well. So I will only ask the community to please continue to monitor validated sources of information on what is actually occurring in our city. Perception is it's very hard to overcome.
Perception is reality.
It is for many people, and I even have to struggle. Sometimes you may perceive something to be there, but it's not when you start looking at the data and you start asking the right people with the right information to give the facts. So continuously to engage in conversation with our community, giving them the right information, will help keeping them informed. Go to right sources. We have MyRMT, where we do put information out on press releases and what we're doing in our city.
And by the way, you've done an outstanding job on that. I mean, you've done the communication is probably as good as any, if not better than everybody before you, in my estimation.
Well, thank you, sir. I really appreciate that. And it's hard to take credit, but I have some great, talented men and women in the Rocky Mount Police Department and other city staff who assist us in getting the right information out. Go to our web pages. The city web page is a wealth of information that comes out from our marketing and communications department. On our Facebook, you have P2C, Police to Citizen. We put a lot of great information out there. And our regular Facebook page.
Well, My Rocky Mount, the app, it's got a lot of that information and the ability to communicate 2 ways.
But, we as a department will continue to engage our community, continue to have one-on-one meetings, continue to have group meetings with different groups or associations. We have a great relationship with Mr. Archie Jones and the Public Relations Office, and making sure, or Human Relations, and meeting with our association presidents. That is so important. Because when I have one of my representatives, and sometimes I'm able to make those meetings to hear the concerns, to be able to answer questions. That's directly from the community and getting it directly from, as some people say, the horse's mouth.
There you go.
Getting the right information is vitally important. But we struggle with the perception.
I think we do too. I really do, and that was one of the points I want to bring forward. And not to say we don't have crime. I'm not pretending we don't. I'm not pretending that we don't have violent crime, because we do. We always will. It'll always be with us. But I do believe that you've made great efforts. I believe you're continue to make great strides. I believe that the investment in technology, I believe that community involvement, reporting stuff, participating in FUSIS, will just make us a better and safer place. And that's something I just really want to convey to a lot of folks. It's not a you job. It's not a you police chief job. It's a we community job. And how do we actually react, and what are we willing to tolerate?
That's right.
If I don't report something, I'm in essence saying I'm okay with it. And if I don't feel safe, well, that's another problem. I need to really kind of deal with that too. But so I'm choosing, because I don't feel safe and I'm scared, to continue to live in that world versus giving myself a chance to live in a better place. And that requires communication. It requires me telling and reporting. It requires me to engage as a citizen in my community. And so without that, you can't really do all your job. You don't really have all the tools at your disposal.
And that's why I always encourage, building a stronger community relationship.
Right.
We need the community's help if we're going to continue to see positive change in our city.
Right.
Meaning, just as you said, Mayor, report crime if you see crime.
Right.
If you see suspicious activity, report that. And even sometimes, if you even have a loved one or a friend or someone that you may feel they need help,
right,
they may have strayed, getting them connected to the right resource, intervening in whatever is going on, is sometimes difficult to see. But we'll arrest someone, then the family's involved, and I sometimes wonder, were there signs that this loved one was doing some of the things that we're doing, and what would have happened if we had intervened?
Right.
The family,
right,
the loved ones have intervened sooner. So if you see not just what we see in the streets or around our neighborhoods, but also be vigilant,
right,
in monitoring what's going on in our homes and with our families. And intervention is a powerful thing. I would rather for a family member to intervene in something a young adult may be doing that's taking them down that wrong path that may lead them into the criminal justice system before we're able to get involved.
Right. Right.
That is my goal, to continue to educate our families, going to educate our community on signs that your child may be involved in, let's say, a gang.
Right.
And if you see these signs, have that conversation, and here are some resources that are available to you to try to get them help.
Right. Look, I think that's the place to leave it, right? It's all of our responsibilities, and we're a community. It takes a tribe to raise a child. It takes a tribe to, live in peace and harmony and create our closest thing to utopia that we can.
That's right.
And so I bear that responsibility. You do, and everybody who participates and lives here does.
Yes, sir.
So I want to leave on that note. I want to say thank you very much for coming, Chief. I tell you what, I appreciate all that you are doing, and you've heard it a million times, but whatever I can do to help continue, just let me know. I apologize for not even bringing up the books for kids event, which I think will be this week.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow. So
5 to 7.
5 to 7 on Wednesday. So that's a little plug there. But anyway, thank you.
Yes, sir.